1967, it started like this, East African Airways. 10 years passed, went into administration, the fleet was flown back to England. 1977. The aircraft was actually then purchased by the RAF, and it sat at Filton for 2 years there, waiting for its turn to be changed into an airborne refueler. Flying petrol station, whichever you want to call it, that's what it became. So 1977, it sat for 2 years. Then 1980, it actually went to be changed into a K3 tanker. That means K3 tanker, it means the seating on board for about 15 to 18 people or their crew to can rest on their missions. On each wing there's a pod. You can see the red guard. That red guard is actually protecting your heads and my head, or ground crew's head, for the propeller. In the centre it's got another refuelling point. That is for the big aircraft, VC10s, Nimrods, C130s and maybe an Atlas 400. You can see at the front there it's got its own refuelling pod or probe at the front. That's why it took 2.5 years to do. The reason is when they fitted that, then they had to do the fuel lines from that. They had to take all the floor up of the aircraft and take it all the way back to that bulge that you see in between the two wings. That's the central pipe work is. So once they've done that, they put all the floors back. Then they had to put fuel lines out to the pods on each wing and to the rear part. So as we go back, it's a Super VC10. So when it flew with BOAC or East African Airways like this is what it would look like inside. Looks quite luxurious. The RAF one, but they changed all that. It went to the standard, what they flew with. Not as posh as that. So when it became a Super VC10, 175 passengers, which isn't very lot compared to that blue one over there, the Dreamliner 787, that can take 300, 350. So the difference. But then again, 1960, mid-60s, not many people flew. Couldn't afford it then, and there wasn't Flybe and all these other low-cost airlines. What it did, it was fitted. All the Super VC10s, all 54, actually had that cargo door there fitted. That was so they could take engines or anything like that into the aircraft, and they could fly them engines to wherever that needed them. Also, when it was a military aircraft, if it was a K2, there'd be 160 seats, but it could also be used for casevac evacuations, and that's how they could bring the stretcher people or the medical people into the cabin. When it was East African Airways, they actually, there's a visitor or a holiday maker who wanted to take his car with him to Africa for his holiday. That's how they got the car inside the fuselage. The car was a Rolls Royce. So when you go into the fuselage and you look where the tanks are, you will see that I feel sorry for them poor passengers who flew with that car, because they'd sit for 8 hours looking at a Rolls Royce. It's worse than Top Gear. So as we go to the back now, the emergency exits are open to get air in. So coming under the wing, the VC10 had a good tradition. It was one of the best aircraft to stand underneath if it was raining or if it was sunny. This is where I used to stand when I used to guard them if it was raining. I was in the Air Force for 10 years and I did fly in a VC10. Their engines are set high. That's how they designed it. So when it went into an aerodrome, in Africa or the Far East, where the runway was substandard, that's why they had the engines high. Jet engines could, when they land, when they reverse thrust or take off, if it's substandard like this, it would actually take the debris inside the engines. Jet engines and bits go inside it, like that, they play havoc with it, and it can actually destroy it. So the Rolls-Royce Conway engines, very noisy engines outside, sound very much like Vulcans, if you've seen the Delta aircraft fly. This roars, the Vulcans howled because they're air intake. The refueling point on the wings, as you can see the pod type 32, you can see the propeller on the front of the aircraft there, or front of the pod. Why does a jet aircraft need a propeller? The reason is that is connected to a turbine or a generator. It is actually in its static position now, straight. The flight engineer knows that they're going to refuel, so he then changes it into its active configuration and it spins. When it spins, the generator then brings electrical power to the pod. Once it brings the power to the pod, it then can bring fuel into it, pressurize the hose inside. The hose is actually sat in that part there. When you go inside the aircraft, you'll see a basket in there near the back, and the big one that lives in that part there. This one is 1,500 litres a minute, can deliver to the aircraft at the back. The one in the centre is 2,000 litres a minute. But they can be adjusted. How quick do they need it? Can we just give it a little bit or that way? Traffic lights at 23,000 feet. You can't get away from them. So there, red, no fuel. Amber, ready to receive fuel and pressurised. Green, passing fuel. The basket would be filled with fuel and it would come out the back. How close they are, like where that cone is there, that's where they would probably sit. This length of hose is 50 foot. What they do is put their nose on this black and white line. These are the lateral view. So the lateral view is looking along like that. Am I flying straight with it or slightly off? So that's what they do. The pilot's bringing it up, or the aircraft behind it is pure skill. It's not automated or anything like that, even though the aircraft are fully computerized. They're flying that with their skill. And especially the VC10s, when they refuel from this, there's only 2 automatic systems on that aircraft. From that probe goes underneath the floor to that central tank in between the wings. Once it's done that, once it's completed, 1983, then it went to for 2 years to Boston down and farmed with the refueling flight from some aviation typhoons and other aircraft. Once it's right, it's intractable now. Have you just arrived?
No, we've just been done the tour around.
You've done the outside? Yeah. Ah, okay. And where were the other ones to go?
Well, I think we're the last ones, to be honest.
Sorry. I'll go on in front of you and explain to you what sort of place. Well,
bigger one, an 80-foot hose attached, which is for larger aircraft really. And normally that's wound around big drums at the back. So it's quite a thing.
Oh, look at that.
It flies up.